welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. The tariff war between USA and China remains relentless as neither side is willing to blink. China has slapped US imports with 125% tariff in response to Donald Trump's 145% tariffs. China has also asked its carriers to halt any purchases of aircraft-related equipment and parts from US companies. Exporters in China are a worried lot at the moment, and Donald Trump believes that China is doing this deliberately to harm the United States of America.
I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America.
Exporters at China's largest export fair are a troubled lot. The Canton Fair is China's oldest expo, attracting global vendors. The escalating tariff war between the US and China has forced 31,000 participating companies brace for the impact.
It's not just a matter of changing tracks, it's a matter of life or death. Around 60 to 70% of our business comes from US clients, so the pressure we are under is extremely high. Because of the tariffs, some of our businesses are suspended because of the problems with payment, exchange rates and others. Although the trade war is going on, we as managers need to keep ahead.
Beijing has asked Chinese carriers to halt any purchases of aircraft-related equipment and parts from US companies. Before this, China has already halted exports of 6 critical rare earth minerals and magnets which are refined and produced only within its borders. These are needed to make everything from cars, drones, missiles and semiconductors.
We definitely have to take a two-pronged approach. Just like many of the suppliers we know are now shifting towards the Russian market, and of course, we are considering that too. Yes, the US market is incredibly attractive, but we'll have to watch how things develop and gradually adapt.
Chinese President Xi Jinping was in Hanoi for 2 days in his most direct effort to firm up alliances in an all-out trade war against the US. He reached Malaysia next, his first trip in 12 years, and then he's scheduled to visit Cambodia, his first trip to the country in 9 years. China had earlier approached India, Australia and even Saudi Arabia to form an axis against the US.
In the face of external uncertainties, China will insist on joining hands rather than throwing punches, tearing down walls instead of building barriers, connecting instead of decoupling. We will continue to expand the circle of trade friends, become a stronger magnet for investment, develop with high quality and open to the outside world at a high level, to inject more stability and positive energy into the world economy.
China and the US enjoy a significantly symbiotic trade relationship. US was China's largest trade partner in 2024, but had a massive trade deficit, burning a $263 billion hole in its budget. The top US exports to China included $16 billion worth of oilseeds and grains, which kept China's poultry business running. Also, as of March 27th, China had purchased 22.12 million metric tons of US soybeans for shipment in 2024 and 25, which ends August 31st. Other exports included electrical equipment and fuel, both strategic in nature. Machinery, aircraft and parts, plastics and pharma comprised the other top exports. Top imports from China include mobile phones and other gadgets, laptops and appliances, toys, plastic products, prefab materials, textiles and footwear. No other country comes close to matching China's sales of more than $400 billion in goods to the US each year. The ongoing tariff war promises to hit Chinese domestic economy hard.
What we are most worried about is a prolonged stalemate where neither side backs down. In the end, it's our ordinary people who suffer. Factories need to support their workers and workers need to live, right? If goods can't be exported and payments can't be collected, how are salaries supposed to be paid? That's the first issue. And once salaries stop being paid, unemployment becomes a real problem.
And while Trump's tariffs on the rest of the world are much lower, they are likely to curb global demand in coming months and implicitly the appetite for Chinese goods in other countries. Bureau Report, India Today.
Our news director and managing editor for special projects, Rahul Kanwal, spoke to Professor of Chinese History and Business at Harvard University, Professor William C. Kirby, about the ongoing tariff war between US and China. Here's an excerpt from the interview.
In the belligerence with which Xi Jinping has hit back, he's not come to the negotiating table like Trump said, we'll have a meeting, we'll try and talk things out. Xi doesn't seem interested. Why is that?
Well, I don't think any country could not react to the kind of aggressive tariffs as this near declaration of economic war by the United States on China, at least so it appears at this 145% rate. That does not apply to all goods, for example, and some of the most important goods and most valuable goods are exempt from those tariffs. It's really quite a complex and messy situation. But I don't think President Xi would have had any choice but to respond. And it isn't just President Xi. I think any Chinese leader would have no choice but to respond in some way or other. And I can guarantee you that if India were suddenly hit with 145% tariff increase, Mr. Modi, I think, would be hard-pressed not to respond to this. This is what governments do. They have to respond. They have domestic constituencies. They have to, if there is to be a negotiation, they will want to go in with a stronger rather than weaker hand. And there are, thousands of American businesses in China, millions and millions of Americans who regularly are customers of Chinese goods. These are all constituents in what had been a largely beneficial bilateral economic relationship between the United States and China over the last quarter century.
Will this tariff war lead to an economic decoupling between Beijing and DC, given how intertwined these two economies are? Is that even possible? Is the world likely to be divided into two trading blocs?
Right. I think it is possible. I think it's unlikely, but I think it is possible. These two countries, in many ways, could not be more intertwined in their economies, more mutually reliant one on another in their economies. And at the same time, you have a history of U.S.-China relations at times when we were deeply involved, for example, politically and militarily in China in the 1940s, ending with a total cutoff of relations from the early 1950s until the early 1970s, and really until the early 1980s in practical terms. So it is possible to see decoupling, but that was a period of enormous tragedy, we must remember. It's a period when Americans and Chinese fought each other in the utterly needless Korean War. It is a time in which all business contacts were severed, all academic contacts, which had been very robust between American and Chinese universities, were severed. And if we believe that decoupling is somehow to the benefit of either the United States and China, then we actually don't know our history at all.
It's not just it for tariffs. China is hitting back at the US by promoting direct sales of luxury goods at significantly lower prices, from designer handbags to clothes and cosmetics. American TikTok and social media are now flooded with Chinese suppliers peddling branded goods for less price.
Even as Donald Trump and Xi Jinping engage in a battle of tariffs on the world stage, something incredible is unraveling on social media. Chinese manufacturers have taken tariffs to heart and have flooded social media sites with exposés of how everything from luxury handbags, high-end sneakers to prefab houses and boats are built in China and at a fraction of the sticker price.
This Birkin bag at Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD.
This video exposes how $38,000 Hermes bags are made in China for allegedly below $1,400.
1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory.
Here are the details of accessories for uber luxury brands like Chanel, Estée Lauder, Louis Vuitton and Dior being produced for a few dollars on the Chinese assembly lines.
For this one, for example, this one like 50 RMB one piece. One piece, 50 RMB. And the cost of it. Yeah.
Another video claims that branded products being sold for hundreds of dollars in upscale showrooms are being built in China for just $6 to $8.
This is for Lululemon. Lululemon sells this jacket for nearly $100, but here only costs you $6 to $5.
This post goes on to claim that the reality of lifestyle footwear brand Birkenstocks being produced at just $10 a piece.
Black dollars, $10. And $10. Always $10.
The United States of America has imposed 145% tariff on Chinese imports, with China hitting back with 125% tariff. China is also exempt from the 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs.
China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal.
China, China, China. Get your LED sign with factory price in China. Who doesn't like a shiny gold LED sign?
There are also some below-the-belt videos reflecting the deep divisions creeping in between the two big world economies.
And we offer 3 years warranty for it. The DHL or FedEx will deliver it to your house no matter where you are.
Who are the suppliers behind Solomon, Timberland, New Balance, Adidas, Nike, First,
no big brand has been spared in this online onslaught. The videos have been made in perfect English, targeting the final customer and taking pride in the massive economies of scale in China.
Fireproof and rust-proof. 2 to 3 people can set it up.
So while America is trumpeting its tariff, China is flexing its manufacturing might. Bureau Report, India Today Television.
For Sephora, let me review the key Chinese suppliers.
Now, in the middle of all these trade tensions, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth admitted that China's hypersonic missiles could destroy U.S. aircraft carriers in just 20 minutes. Given their high speed and ability to maneuver, hypersonic weapons present a real challenge to U.S. naval forces who rely on aircraft carriers for their power projection capabilities.
The Pentagon is in the book the exact amount of years, but in the past X number of years, 10, 12, 15, the Pentagon has a perfect record in all of its war games against China. We lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems. We're always the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works. We're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China, we have, what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war, the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic outset. Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict.
Even Ivy League schools are not being spared from the U.S. president's target. President Donald Trump is threatening to tax Harvard University as a political entity after the institution rejected the administration's policy change demands. Earlier, the U.S. Department of Education announced that it has frozen about $2.3 billion in federal funds in grants and contracts to Harvard University because Harvard refused to follow White House demands, including to limit activism on campus and shut down diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In a letter sent to Harvard on Friday, Trump administration had called for broad government and leadership reforms, including changes to its governance, hiring practices, and admission procedures. But Harvard University rejected the list of sweeping demands. In an X post on Monday, Harvard University stated, and I quote, "The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights." White House had said that the policy changes were designed to combat anti-Semitism on campus. Harvard University President Alan Garber, in a letter to Harvard community on Friday, had stated that the sweeping demands violated the university's First Amendment rights and exceeds the statutory limits of government's authority under Title VI. Former US President Barack Obama took to social media to applaud his alma mater, Harvard University, for rejecting Donald Trump's demands, and he said this sets an example. The outrage over attack in Ukrainian city of Sumy has prompted US President Donald Trump to express his stance over Russia's relentless attacks. On the one hand, Trump called Russia's attack a mistake, and now he blames Putin, Zelensky, and Biden for this war, maintaining that if he were in power, the war would have never started.
I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president. That's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Two statements in 2 consecutive days by the US President Donald Trump. First, a mistake, and then the US President blamed his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, for starting the war. When reporters questioned Trump's mistake comment about Russian attack on Ukraine city of Sumy, the US President blamed all, including his predecessor, in the Oval Office.
The mistake was letting the war happen. If Biden were competent, and if Zelensky were competent, and I don't know that he is. We had a rough session with this guy over here. That's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Though an immediate reaction to this has not come yet, Kremlin maintains that there is a political will for peaceful agreement.
There are no clear outlines of a peace agreement yet, but there is a political will to move towards this agreement. And I repeat once again, we highly appreciate the constructive and meaningful contacts that we have had with the US.
This comment comes after the world condemned Russia's actions. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, said the target of the Russian attack in Sumy has been a meeting of Ukrainian and Western military personnel.
We have facts of who was there at the facility which has been hit in Sumy. There was yet another mob-up of the Ukrainian military commanders and their Western colleagues, disguised as mercenaries, or I do not know what.
Key forces have also hit Russia's Kursk region that borders Ukraine with dozens of drones, killing an elderly woman and injuring 9 people. Videos showed fires engulfing residential buildings, apparently caused by drone strikes. Bureau Report, India Today.
US President Donald Trump met with Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele in the Oval Office on Monday. The two heads of states enjoyed camaraderie and their chat was free-flowing. President Trump told the visiting head of state, "You are helping us out by holding migrants deported from the United States of America in a notorious prison in El Salvador." They also got into a discussion about transgender athletes, with the US President asking his counterpart from El Salvador, "Do you allow men to play in women's sports?" Listen in to what the conversation was all about.
Well, it's an honor to be here in the Oval Office with the president and leader of the free world. We're very happy and we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like...
It's the liberal establishment, but they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Because it's all common sense.
Yeah.
It's not liberal conservative, it's common sense.
Exactly.
And, like, do you allow men to play in women's sports? Do you allow men to box your women and box? Because I know you have a lot of boxing.
That's violence.
That's abuse of a woman. It's abuse of a woman. But we have people that fight to the death because they think men should be able to play in women's sports. And some of those sports, it wouldn't matter much, but it still matters. But some of them are very dangerous for women.
OpenAI just dropped a powerful new update to ChatGPT, and its CEO, Sam Altman, is posting job application on Elon Musk's X. What's going on at OpenAI? Here's Cyrus with the story.
It's common practice among tech companies that they keep releasing updates to their current lineup of products. Now, this could be hardware or software, which is the reason that OpenAI has released an update for its ChatGPT model, basically GPT 4.1. Now, this is an upgrade to the current GPT-4 lineup that they have. Now, why is it important for you? Because GPT 4.1 is basically smarter. It is very good at solving complex problems, even in mathematics and also your general daily work. So, OpenAI with this 4.1 model is trying to make AI more conversational for you, basically a companion, because right now it seems that the older models have a lot of problems with hallucinations. Now, what hallucinations basically mean are inaccuracies when they present facts. So, with 4.1, more accuracy, more contextual, and a good companion if you want to have conversations with AI. Now, what Sam Altman has done with this one basically is, because of the overload that the company is having, because of Ghibli, a lot of the image context that the company is developing is taking a load on the servers. So basically what happened, because of this overload, Sam Altman went online on his Twitter and put a word out asking coders and developers to come join the company. This is basically a job application being put out by the company's CEO. You don't get to see this happen a lot, but this is how, and this is why the company is looking for these kind of talents. It kind of comes across as a sign of desperation because of the overload that is currently on the company. Remember, a lot of requests are coming to OpenAI because of the number of users they have. Sam said that the number could be almost up to 800 million, which could overwhelm the servers. So yes, Sam has put out the invitation. He's asking for talent to come on board, and this means that ChatGPT is going to be coming up with a lot of updates, big updates in the coming weeks, and you should definitely prepare for it.
Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin launched his fiancée, Lauren Sanchez, into space on Monday with an all-female celebrity crew that included pop star Katy Perry and Gayle King. The New Shepard rocket blasted off on the quick up-and-down trip from West Texas. The fringes of space beckoned 107 kilometers up and provided a few precious minutes of weightlessness. Pop star Katy Perry, Jeff Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez, CBS host Gayle King, former NASA rocket scientist Aisha Bowe, scientist Amanda Nguyen, and film producer Carrie Ann Flynn experienced a brief period of weightlessness before returning to Earth in a flight lasting around 11 minutes. The celebrity launch was America's first space flight where women filled each seat. The only other all-female crew in 64 years of human space flight was back in 1963.
Tamir's in space.
That's all in this edition of World Today.